What's up, guys? Mike Davis here for Sound Off Sports Inside the Den at FOX5 Studios. Big time pickleball event going down here at Mandalay Bay Michelob Ultra Arena. We got some of the best pros of all time joining us on Sunday. You can't wait for this great event. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport, but some of the greatest tennis legends of all time are going to be a part of it. Agassi, Steffi Graf, Andy Roddick, Mardy Fish, John Isner, Genie Bouchard, so many great people. And right now we're joined by the former number 7 world rank Mardy Fish. Mardy Fish, great to see you, meet you. I've played you, haven't played you. I wish I did. I've watched you many times in person. You're a tremendous player, a great representative, an ambassador for the sport of tennis when it comes to the United States. So it's great to be with you. But tell us a little bit about your love affair right now with pickleball. Has it translated over? Because a lot of traditional tennis players aren't in love with the sport of pickleball. Tell us about this love affair you have with the game.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. I wish we had played. Would have given me an extra win on the belt. No, look, golf and tennis have been a big part of my life, sort of growing up. And, I grew up in Florida, was born in Minnesota. I grew up in Florida, so outdoorsy type state. And so we played a lot of tennis, a lot of golf. In retirement, I try to play as much golf as I can. I do a lot of randomly. I played maybe the most non-contact sport in the world, and then fell in love with mixed martial arts. So I actually train and compete jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, and so I have a lot of other interests outside of kind of tennis or whatever. Pickleball kind of falls in that category where I really enjoy sort of going over. There's a lot of people that play out here. I live in Los Angeles. A lot of people that play out here, and former tennis players, guys like Justin Gimelstob.
Yeah.
I'll kind of go over, play with him, and we'll do certain games where we'll try and make it sort of more of a fitness contest than because pickleball can be short point, or I guess it could be long points, but not a ton of movement. Certainly
Right.
at doubles, not a ton of kind of moving around and stuff like that. Obviously, half of the tennis court is a
Yeah.
full court. We'll do something where we're not allowed to come to the net, and we'll just kind of play from the baseline, things like that. Makes it sort of fun. It feels like sort of an abbreviated version of tennis. A
Yeah.
little bit easier probably, but certainly fun. And I understand why it's so popular. I mean, anyone can play with anyone. I can go out with my wife and play with, John Isner and his wife, and we can have a good match, and so it's a really fun game, keeps you young, and gives you a good workout on top of it.
Well, people here in Las Vegas have definitely fallen in love with the sport. It's captured and captivated the minds and hearts of so many people here in the States. But it's fascinating. Pickleball Slam 3 going down Mandalay Bay, Michelob Ultra Arena this Sunday. Event starts at 1. It's also going to be on ESPN exclusively, so make sure you watch that. Marty, it's interesting. You had such a fascinating career, took down so many legends, guys like, Nadal and Andy Murray and all these types of players, even, being number 7 and your rise. But I think the Netflix documentary shed a lot of light on, a lot of the struggles, and, you really became an ambassador, not only for the sport of tennis as an American, but for mental health, which was an incredible thing. And it's fascinating. I don't want to spend too much time on it. I do want to ask you a couple questions about it, because I think you speaking out and attacking that stigma is going to be something that people carry and remember for a long time. From the documentary, and I definitely encourage everybody to go watch Untold Breaking Point on Netflix. It's really poignant. You're such a talented guy. I mean, you were just talking about golf. You almost took down Steph Curry in a golf tournament. So you're
Well, he's a basketball player, so that
I know, but he's a great golfer. I mean, he really is. But you're a guy who, growing up in Minnesota, even local news stations were doing stories on you at a very young age. You go to, at young age of 15, to Saddlebrook Academy, and you're really, taking more of a charge with your life. Tom, your father, was a tennis pro and all this stuff. So you start taking tennis seriously. But the point in the documentary that is the most interesting to me, as somebody who used to play USTA tennis and was recruited for college and all that, was the match in Newport, which I don't get it. And that's why it's the first thing I really want to ask you, is because to me, when you had this outburst at Newport, it's, you know, you're more of the in the 140s world rankings, and then you have this outburst after all these months of trading where you lost 30 pounds, you're hustling, you're bustling, you're at a whole different mental and physical standpoint of your career, and you lose this initial first set and you have an outburst on a changeover with the opponent you're playing. And I couldn't believe that it was such a transitional moment for you, because to me, most youth juniors, tennis players, that's the thing that that's the thing they developed before anything else, was the fact of the mental game of tennis, getting inside somebody else's mind before we're even talking about anything on the court. And it's just so evident, even from the documentary, your parents are such nice, sweet-hearted people, and you, I don't know, it hurt me a little bit, because it seemed like, wow, Mardy's such a good young guy, whereas all the guys that I would lose to in juniors were the guys that had that aspect down by 5th grade. You know, it was all about the outbursts and the stuff that's not going on the court. So that, you know, in doing all my research, that was the main thing I wanted to ask you, because it's so puzzling to me that that was the missing component that late into your life as such a successful tennis player.
Yeah, it's a great question. The answer is, like, I don't have that in me on the outside. I think everyone has that. I think every great competitor has some sort of fire on the internally. That specific event, he's talking about Newport 2010, you know, and really quickly I had lost a lot of ranking points. I had to have a knee surgery in 2009, late 2009. I worked my off, okay, to get back to not only back to on tour, but also back get my body right, get my mentality right to take on this sort of second part of my career. I went into that specific tournament thinking, I have to win this tournament. I have to win this tournament. And I knew, and you're talking about a quarterfinal match with a guy named Frank Dancevich. And Frank was a friend. Maybe still is a friend. I don't know. I haven't talked to him in a while, but he was a Davis Cup captain for Canada. Maybe still is. I was a Davis Cup captain for the US. We went against each other, and we actually talked about this, you know, after the documentary. And this is maybe, I don't know, we maybe talked about it 2021, 2022, something like that, where he had watched it, and he had, you know, or people had watched it, I'm sure, and brought it to his attention as well. What you're referring to is, you know, again, a match in the quarterfinals against a guy who was a phenomenal player, but a really, really good grass court player. Newport, Rhode Island is a, let's see, what would have the tournament been called at the time? The Hall of Fame Tennis Championships or something like that, maybe, because it's at the Hall of Fame, the Tennis Hall of Fame. I knew that during that match, I knew that Frank was, or before that match, I knew Frank was was going to be the toughest match of the tournament. He was the guy that, like, you know, you sort of didn't want to see in the draw. Those courts they've done such a good job of creating grass courts now and building grass courts. They're so good that, like, they're almost slow hard courts.
Right.
At Newport, they were a little behind that, and they're still they still felt like real grass courts, like, you know, playing at Wimbledon in 1985 kind of thing, right? Like, where you had to come to the net to be successful. Frank was an amazing athlete. He was a phenomenal athlete, and he was a great player, and he was awesome on grass. So I knew going into that match that was going to be the one that I needed to jump over to win this tournament. But I need to win this tournament. I need to win this tournament for a lot of different reasons. I need to win this tournament for my ranking, to get my ranking back to where I can get into tournaments like Cincinnati and Canada, which were coming up fairly soon, and then, you know, and then onward past the U.S. Open into some of the stuff in the fall. And you know, again, you mentioned my ranking was around 140. It was around 300 or so when I started the year, because I had lost a bunch of ranking points because I wasn't able to play because of this knee surgery, which took about 3-4 months to get back from. So in that match, I knew that, Frank was playing very well. I knew that I had this new mentality where, and maybe this is where martial arts comes in for me, where it does make sense for me, where it's like it's a non-contact gladiator sport. Tennis is. We leave the
Yeah.
locker room, we're all by ourselves. We walk out there, and you have to beat one person on one day. That's it. You don't beat the whole tournament. It's not a golf tournament where you're trying to play the golf course and play 130 other players. Like, it is just you and that person. So it was me and Frank, and I needed that match. I wanted that match maybe more than any other match outside of a Davis Cup, in my life. And I knew that a win at that tournament was going to catapult me into the top 50 again. It was going to get me a certain. So there were a lot of different reasons why. The outburst itself was after the first set, where it was like, I got to do something. I have to. We are playing pickup sticks, and this is professional sport, and I need to try and get in his head somehow. And I sort of lost my mind for like a split second there, almost to where it's pretty friendly. There's a lot of the umpires, the chair umpires, they're all the same chair umpires throughout the year. And so you become fairly friendly. I was
Right.
on tour for 16 years. You're from fairly friendly with them. I'm a very friendly guy. So like maybe outside of, I'm a very fiery guy on the tennis court, but maybe outside of that, I was, you know, very nice to them, and they were, friendly or whatever. So even to a point to where the umpire said, Marty, relax. What are
Right.
you doing? Relax. But I think what comes down to it is it worked. It got in his head. It fired me up even more. He was shocked. I was shocked, to a point, but I knew personally that I
Right.
was willing to make the sacrifice of being friends with Frank over wanting
Right.
to win this, or wanting to win this match over being friends with him in that moment. And I felt like I'll figure out the friendship another time if it really
It's
matters to me. But right in that moment, I needed that, and it worked. And we're not playing again, like we're not playing blackjack here. We're not playing poker. Like this is like, well, poker's a lot of money on the line. Maybe like I said, we're not playing pickup sticks here. And so
yeah.
this is
No,
like real professional sport, and I will do whatever it takes short of cheating to win this match. and
yeah.
and it worked.
For our viewers at home, it's so interesting because if you're not a part of the tennis culture and world, I think you do think tennis isn't a physical sport. But, me, I'm from Philadelphia. I'm an Eagles fan. Eagles celebrating,
Congratulations.
thank you. They're celebrating, a parade today. You're a Vikings fan. It's interesting. It's different kinds of stuff in the NFL, extremely physical sport, but the mental toll, and that's why I do think for years to come, it's kind of like the inner game of tennis, a very famous book. When we talk about AJ Brown on the sidelines during this Super Bowl
Mhm.
championship run, reading this book, Inner Excellence, I do think this is going to become a staple, this documentary, because it encapsulates the emotional toll of so many young junior tennis players in such a poignant manner. And it's heartbreaking watching you a little bit because you were always such a gentleman type of guy. Like, you were a Nadal type, a Federer type, Agassi, who's someone who's going to be a Pickleball Slam 3, another guy who is always like that. And I think a lot of people perhaps don't gravitate to guys like the Djokovic ish mentality because they possess a little bit more of, for me, it was a kid named Max Rubin, who all these guys in juniors, that just have that edge where, yes, the strokes are there, the forehands there, they're tremendous talents, but they have a whole nother thing going on in terms of
Yeah.
just isms
They're almost
that
willing to do more than you are to
exact.
win those. Certainly in junior tennis, there's a lot of cheating in junior tennis. There's
Yes,
not
you're
line
calling your
umpires, so
own
they don't call.
lines.
You're calling your own lines, and it's brutal. I have a quick story on the tennis where I was just like you, where like I couldn't do those kinds of things. Um, I had a kid who was cheating me like crazy. It was just like 10-year-olds, you know, and I didn't know what else to do. Maybe 12-year-olds. I didn't know what else to do. And so I thought, okay, he had just gotten me again on another blatant cheat on a call and won the point off of it. And so what am I going to do? Okay, I'm going to call his serve out, his first serve. I'm just going to call it out wherever it's in. So he hits his next point. He hits his serve right in the middle of the box. I catch it and say out. And I'm so uncomfortable doing this too, like because this is not me at all.
Right.
Um, I do not have this in me, right? And I feel terrible, honestly, like doing it, right? Okay, so I catch it. I think, okay, I got him back. Okay, we're even now. So he hits a second serve. So I'm like, okay, so he hits a second serve, middle of the box. I hit it back, middle of the box. He catches it, calls it out. And I'm like, he got me. He got the point. I just got his first serve. So he even, so the right there and then I knew that I wasn't that type of I wasn't going to be that type of player to win at all costs. But I'll tell you what, and I never did it again on purpose. But that specific match and that specific time, I felt like I needed to, and I may have lost a friend. Um, Frank's a great dude. I respect his tennis game for sure. He's a super nice kid. But I didn't care in that moment. Like I just didn't care. I had to win, and I think tapping into that mentality was healthy. Was almost healthy for me in a way because um, I was sort of a very non-confrontational, shy away from sort of stress or shy away from things like that. Tough conversation.
Yeah.
And you can grow, pretty fast, kind of learning from those situations, learning from those, realizing that like, yeah, that's not you, but hey, you tapped into something that was probably fairly healthy for you
Yeah.
in the moment as well.
It's a nice thing. I think it speaks volumes to you. And we see the "I Love You, Daddy" in the background. Your wife's in the documentary.
We don't have it doesn't it doesn't come off right now.
Oh,
So
say, hey,
I do like it.
you
So
don't want it to come off, but I think it's a
yeah,
beautiful
yeah,
thing that to be, listen, there's levels to everything in life and certainly
yeah.
levels to tennis. And it's a beautiful thing that I think you were able to stay true to yourself. And that's why I think it's so sad with the pain and the wear and tear, even after you have the heart aplasia procedure, and you're still dealing with so many of these issues. And I think it's because it's so evident you have such a good heart and soul, and for you to still get to that number 7 ranking, it's a really sweet thing. And my question in terms of excellence, it's like, you're a big sports guy as well as me, like, the Kobe's, the Jordans, it's notorious. Jordan had no friends. Everybody hated Michael Jordan,
Yeah.
but he's the best. Do you think, and I'm curious being around guys like Roger. Roger, I think that's what was so special about him. It seemed like a lot of people really enjoyed him, even though he had that, excellence to him. Do you think, is it a prerequisite? Like, in order to be Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, is it a prerequisite to be, all in like you were that day at Newport, where you have this understanding that you're going to actually cross over to the dark side because that's how bad you need it? Is that
Yeah.
a prerequisite for
I
excellence?
think I think all of the guys that you'll mention that are like that are there are a lot of individual sport athletes that are like that, but the ones that you mentioned, let's say basketball, Kobe and MJ, those are individual sport athletes stuck in team sports. So like there's
Huh.
a name a lot of, name the all-time greats, right? Like Tom Brady was such an
Right.
individual. Now it seemed like, I've never met him, but it seems like he was pretty well liked by his teammates, I think, but I bet he did, he is a guy that, there's these sports that these guys get guaranteed money, right? And like it's so hard, basketball, baseball, football to a certain extent, but they're still working for theirs for the most part. So it'll keep those guys out. But basketball and baseball specifically, there's such a culture, it seems like, to okay, well, we just have another game tomorrow.
Right.
And like for individual sport athletes or for football, let's say, like there's not a game tomorrow. There may not be anything worthwhile for the rest of the year, or in tennis or in golf. It's like we get only one bad day and then we move. You sort of, you don't get another day that week. You have to wait till the next tournament. And so I think a lot of, first of all, like we'll never have a guy. Roger Federer will be the most non-disliked athlete of all time, right? Like he's very well liked, right? Like we
Yeah.
all, in the top five of all time, right? But he will go down. He is Derek Jeter going into Fenway Park and get it and having 80% of the fans cheer
Yeah.
for him,
It's
like
a good
stand up and
analogy.
cheer.
Yeah.
And that is so rare in sports. I played a bunch of matches against him. I mean, specifically like Cincinnati. I played a couple big matches against him in Cincinnati
Well, you beat him
and
in
Indian
Indian
Wells.
Wells, right? Didn't you
Yeah,
beat
and
him at
Indian
Indian
Wells,
Wells?
where we're playing in, Cincinnati specifically, right? We play in Mason, Ohio, so a little north of Cincy. That is like middle America, right? Like that is, I was born in the Midwest.
Yeah.
I am American through and through. And so that, if any place, would have been a place where they would root for an American player. It's like 85% to 15%
Right.
Roger, right?
Yeah.
And you just get it. It just makes sense. I'm rooting for him, right? Like play other players are rooting for him.
Right.
He's such a rare breed. We'll never see a player and a player with his sort of his style, the way that he plays, the
Hmm.
aesthetics of the way that he plays, right? It's very classy poetry. It's almost like poetry in motion, if you will. I used to always say that when it was Sampras would come up and do one of those like jumping overheads.
Yeah.
It was like sort of poetry, he's like kind of created that shot. It was a
Right.
cool, it's such a beautiful looking shot. Like Roger was a very beautiful style, the way that he plays and stuff. And then the way that he goes about and handles his business on and off the court is so rare. He is truly a genuine human. I always mess around with him on Twitter or whatever, just trying to kind of rile him up or rile his fans up a little bit. Like, I can't stand this guy, blah, blah, blah. It's, it just couldn't be further from the truth. I'm sure 90% of them think I'm joking, but like, there are some that probably think I'm serious, but we won't see players like him. And then to have two more like in the same era that are like just as good or maybe even better. Um, Rafa was a guy that there were certain these guys all are insanely competitive in their own right. I don't know what Roger's vices are or what he did internally, but he has them. Everybody has them, right? Like, I don't know what his internal thoughts were, um, because they never really came out to where you're like, oh, this guy, I can't stand him, or this guy, can you believe he does this kind of thing?
Right.
Now, Nadal, as awesome of a dude as he is, and we're good friends, and we played we played a lot together, played Davis Cup matches, we played big matches in singles and doubles. He had a way about him where he liked to take things on his own pace. He liked to go slow. He liked to make you wait. Um,
All
he
the
liked to
ticks.
bring,
I mean, just the
yeah,
ticks that,
yeah.
yeah.
He liked to bring things into the press. Like, you would never hear Roger say, "Oh, my knee's hurting me. I'm going to play this tournament or go through this event." And so you knew that his knee was hurting. He wouldn't say it before. He wouldn't say it during. And he wouldn't say it after. If it ever came out, it was from Tony Godsick, his agent, or something like that, right? Rafa would kind of let you know, like, he's not feeling that good or whatever. And I don't know if that's he's playing a mental game. I think a little bit of it he is. And then I also think that, like, that was just the kind of guy he was. So my point is, like, we'll never see someone like Roger where it's like he's not going to give you an excuse if he loses. He's going to praise the other player. He's going to be as classy in the win as it is in defeat. Um, and we'll never see this type of. I mean, those guys won 64 or 66 majors
Yeah.
in a matter of 15 years or whatever it was. So it's
Yeah.
just, we'll never see that again. And it's the kind of, it's a bummer. Novak's going out, he's going to be going down fairly soon. I mean, he's going to play until he feels like he can't compete in majors. Um, but yeah, I think all those guys going back to like the competitive side of it. I think a lot of those guys that you'll mention that are like that in team sports
Yeah.
are just individual athletes
That's
stuck
a
in that sport.
that's a really good point. I really like what you're saying about that. I never really heard it phrased that way, but it's so interesting because you're so the opposite of an everyman, but you also encapsulate so many qualities that draw people to you because you have so many Midwest, just an average kind of guy qualities, but then you were number 7 in the world. So you're really not an everyman, but it's so nice to see someone like you succeed. And, to me, it's like your documentary and even this movie Challengers, because so much of youth tennis is the relationship you had with Andy, who's going to be at Pickleball Slam 3 at Mandalay
Mm-hmm.
Bay. I mean, leaving Saddlebrook, then you're living down the hall from him in his family's home. And it's almost like the family positioned you there to help elevate their son's play so they could, he could be friends with somebody who's also, a good challenge. And, so when you ultimately beat him after, going 0-9, and then you beat him, it really is, it's a Rocky-ish type of, a Rocky-esque type of feeling and an emotion, and it's a beautiful thing. But that's what so much of juniors is, and I think the narrative with Federer was that he was a maniac on the junior circuit. Like he was,
Yeah.
the way you watch him now is not what he looked like as a young kid. From what I hear, is that he was like throwing rackets, temper tantrums, a different kind of dude, is what history kind of says. So it's an interesting thing. The good thing is we're not gonna have to see, hopefully is the anxiety's not going to come out at a pickleball match, right, Marty? I mean, I hope not.
I don't think so. I think when they flipped a coin to have John Isner and myself on which team we were going to be on, and they asked
Right.
me if I won the toss, what team would I want to be on, and I said not Andy's. That was my response. So no, I love he's family. He's family. We go way back. Whatever happens in on the court or whatever, we got into it plenty of times. Talking trash to each other under our breath, and we've competed and fought at everything, competed at everything, and he's family, and so I can't wait to see him. I never, we really never get to see each other. He's over in Charlotte, and I'm out in LA, so. We spent Thanksgiving together this year or last year. Saw his kids again for the first time in a while. His beautiful wife too, and so it's we kind of went through life at the same time. He and I like he's I think maybe 8 months younger than me. He's an August birthday and I'm a December birthday of 81 and he's 82. So we're fairly close in age. I got married in '08. He got married in '09. I had a kid in 14. He had a kid in 15. I had a kid in 16. He had a kid in 17. So like
Wow.
we kind of have gone through. I turned pro in '99. He turned pro in 2000. That kind of thing. And so we sort of went through all of those sort of life's challenges, life's whatever, traveling and becoming a professional at a young age, and making money and understanding what that's like, and being really good at something at a young age. Try not to be as cocky as you could possibly
Right.
be, and I'm sure we failed at that many times. But as we've gotten older, we've not necessarily gotten closer, but just sort of understood each other more, and understood that like he was as competitive as anyone's ever that I've ever seen. He was the type of guy that if you had a set that somebody had to play for your life, or tennis match to play for your life, you wanted someone like him
Wow.
to represent you, because you knew he was going to give everything he had on every point. He had that Nadal mentality, he had that latent Hewitt mentality,
Hmm.
where like he wasn't going to quit on any point. He thought he was going to, if he's down 5-0 in the third set, he thought he was going to win, and he was wondering why he's down 5-0. So,
Yeah.
um, he went through. We have him to thank in our generation, James Blake and I, for taking, sort of taking all of the negative and positive stuff in the media. Why can't these guys win any more majors? Or whatever. Why can't we win more majors? And Andy's like, well, I've won majors. I don't know. Ask them. Like
Right.
that's not my problem. But he had to handle all of that as well, and he did an amazing job with it. So we're brothers that fight a lot. Not anymore, but we used to fight all the time, and we're family for sure.
Well, I love it. Let's wrap this up. These are the three matches that are going to be going down this Sunday, Mandalay Bay Michelob Ultra Arena Pickleball Slam 3. You can watch it on ESPN or here in Vegas. Make sure you go check it out. Agassi versus Roddick in pickleball. We got Steffi Graf, Mardy Fish versus Genie Bouchard and John Isner. And then Agassi and Steffi, the husband and wife duo, are also going to be playing against Roddick and Genie as well. It's going to be a lot of fun to see this in action. Mardy, you're a great man. It's an honor to speak with you. I learned so much today, getting in the chat with you. Former Davis Cup captain, number 7 in the world. And, this is a sports show, Mardy. So I'll ask you if there's anything else you want to say, but I do want to know, should the Vikings roll with Darnold or JJ McCarthy next season? That's the last thing I want to ask you.
I appreciate you asking me a Vikings question. They are the bane of my existence. I think what they do is they franchise tag Darnold and try and trade him to a place that they can get anything for him, and then also trade him to a place that he wants to go to. I know that they think very highly of him, but I also know that they have a plan for JJ McCarthy, and hopefully JJ to JJ will be the connection for years to come for the Vikings. So I think they roll with the rookie, or now second year, feels like a rookie, but I think they roll with McCarthy.
Yeah,
I think they roll with McCarthy. I think they they go all in with the youngster and take his rookie contract as well. I think that's a big part of it. And I hope they go after Myles Garrett. I think he's like a change your franchise, trace the course of your franchise kind of guy. So I hope they go after him.
After losing Daniil Hunter, it could be a good move under that Brian Flores defense that looks good. So that would be nice to see. Listen, if JJ turns out to be, half the person you are, Mardy, I think Minnesota will be in a great spot.
I appreciate you. You need to be my agent, I think. I need you on my team, man.
I listen, I'm a big fan. I was a big fan before the documentary, but I feel super close to you. So if I see you on Sunday, I'm going to shake your hand and
please come say hi. Please.
Yes. All right, Mardy. Thank you so much. Make sure you go check out Pickleball Slam 3 this Sunday, Michelob Ultra Arena, Mandalay Bay. Mardy, great talking with you. We'll see you next time.
See you guys. Thanks for having me.